and welcome to episode 39 of the Classical Guitar Composers Podcast. As always, I am your host, Chris Hales, glad to be bringing you another episode of the show that features your original classical guitar music. If this is your first time joining me, this show is simply a show where we talk about a little guitar, we talk a little life, and we listen to original classical guitar pieces sent in by listeners. If you have something you'd like to submit for the show, you simply send an MP3 recording to chris@classicalguitarcomposers.com. It's that simple. You send me an MP3, I play your piece on the show. So I'm going to tell you about a little recent tragedy. I was taking apart my shotgun the other day, and when I was finished, I noticed that my thumbnail on the right hand had a big split that it goes right down the middle, and then there's like a chip out of either side of the center, so it looked like my thumbnail is like a cloven hoof. And you know, it's the most like heartbreaking, soul-crushing thing, isn't it? It's funny because when I started playing classical guitar, I mean, I was breaking nails all the time. You know, just you're not used to it. And for years, whenever I broke a nail, I was like annoyed, but you know, I just put on a fake nail. You know, I'm now at the point in my life where I just wait it out. I'm not going to bother with fake nails. And it's not that big of a deal when you break a finger, but the thumbnail is like, you break your thumbnail and you just know there goes the next 3 to 4 weeks. Like, you're a good month out before guitar playing feels normal. You're probably even more than that before it really is where it should be. I guess everyone grows theirs to different lengths, but that's what I'm looking at. So it sucks. But it didn't even break. It actually lasted like a week. It only had that split down the middle. You know, I kind of just shaped it, and I kept it stabilized with some super glue that lasted about a week, and then the other day it just was gone. Half of it was gone. I had to cut off the other half because that was useless. So I made a decision, and the decision was I'm just not going to practice guitar this week. So I haven't touched my guitar. Well, I've touched it, but like as soon as I pick it up, I start playing, and I'm like, oh yeah. So, using that opportunity to record the podcast now. But that is the tragedy that has struck. And I've been in the middle of this composition too. I've talked a little bit about it, but you know, a new piece I'm working on, you know, it's probably a few months away from completion, and I do plan on doing a multi-movement work out of this. So, I mean, it's who knows how long before I have a complete, you know, before the next piece is complete. But I now keep a regular composition schedule, something I've never done in my life to this degree. I mean, to a certain point, I guess when I was taking composition, I had to write, and I did, but this is a little different because this is completely like relying on self-discipline. And you know, I carve out, albeit a small amount, but I carve out some time out of the week to practice guitar, and then into that I've carved a chunk out of that that's dedicated to just composing guitar music. But I was, before the loss of my thumbnail, I was making good progress, and I was thinking about this Mendelssohn piece. Now, not copying the Mendelssohn piece, nothing like that. But I took this class in college called Form Analysis. I'm sure many of you have taken it or have heard of it. And for me, that's right up my alley. That's like my jam. I love music theory, and I love studying how pieces are formed. And a lot of it goes over my head. I mean, to be honest, like, I wish I could wrap my brain around it better. But anyway, I had this professor who I always was really fascinated by his knowledge, and he had this incredible talent for dissecting pieces beyond just I'm not talking about just like analyzing the chords and labeling out, all that, like your standard like paperwork type of analysis. Like, this guy found meaning in pieces that I don't know if, it was just him interpreting, or if like this really was the case with these pieces. It doesn't matter so much that he found something in pieces that I wouldn't see, and then I'd hear the piece in a whole different way afterward. And we did an analysis of one of Felix Mendelssohn's songs without words, and man, I wish I could remember which one it was off the top of my head. Those can be a little confusing anyway, because there's like several sets of them, and anyway, so I can't tell you which one it is, but he thought that the piece was symbolic of love, and he showed that with pointing out these two voices, and this lower voice was chasing the upper voice up and down the register, in a bit of a game back and forth, and it was very much like lovebirds, right, going up and then down. And I'm making it sound a little simplistic and somewhat trivial, I think. Like, that's the thing, I can't really replicate. He would point things out and it would be amazing, but I can't seem to find these things myself, and this was years ago. So anyway, I took that idea into this piece I'm writing, not like an entire thing of a voice chasing around another voice, but I liked that concept. I liked the way it sounded. I was trying to write something that like moving, something that would move me musically. And so not for the whole piece, but for a section of the piece, I adopted that idea and kind of created a duet, if you will. Like, so, in this guitar piece, I have this section that is very much a duet on one guitar. And I'm not going to tell you like I'm doing what Mendelssohn did, and it's not going to have that kind of an effect. I'm not that good. However, I tell you this just to tell you that it helped me move the piece forward, and that's anytime I get an insight in how I might overcome writer's block, even just once, I'm always like excited to share that on this show, because I can only imagine that many of you experience writer's block and have to deal with it from time to time. And we all have different ways of overcoming it. My way in the past was always just wait till I feel inspired, but I've found myself just wanting to be more prolific, not spending years between pieces. It's also somewhat of a creative outlet for me. If I'm composing, I'm generally happier. So composing's a little hard. I mean, even practicing, like, it kind of has to be the first thing of the day for me, because I'm quickly distracted by life, and I can't focus on composition once the day's going, even if nothing's going on. Like, the longer we get into the day, the more I'm noticing things around the house that need my attention. I'm noticing that the sink is leaking, or whatever. I can't do it. So I have to do this early in the morning. Anyway, while doing this duet approach, I also thought about my daughter's piano teacher once gave her this suggestion when she was trying to memorize a piece, of creating a story within the piece in your mind. And so, this piece takes you through this story, and it would help her memorize it. And it worked for her. And then I was like, so I just quietly didn't say anything, but I tried it like with these. I remember what the two pieces were. I was working on Taroba's sonata in A minor, the fantasy Sonata, and I was working on Villalobos's Etude number 8. So I tried creating these stories, and no, I'm not going to share what they were, but it didn't really help me, like, as far as memorizing, and in fact, it became a distraction for me. I was, like, trying to force it, and it kind of just got in the way. I think what I get more when I get imagery when I play music, and so I just kind of let the imagery appear in my brain, but it's not like it's a consistent thing. I don't like see the same thing every time I play the same part of the piece or whatever, but in general, that's kind of how I respond to it. So it didn't work for me. However, adopting that idea into composing, music without words, but a song without words, like the music's trying to say something, and so I kind of came up with this little story, again, not really even a story, but more imagery, as I was composing this duet. And all this is it's not to tell you that this made my piece better. It's to tell you that it made my piece move forward. It was a way I overcame, like, a stumble. Like, how do I approach this section? The piece is in sonata form, and I didn't really... Well, I had a second theme. I had my primary theme, and I had some ideas for a second theme. And when I reached the point where I need to make this transition from the first to the second theme, I couldn't find the transition, and I didn't like the theme. I realized it doesn't complement the first theme. It's like a different style of music almost. And so I was stuck. So this is how I overcame that. The piece is not finished. The exposition is mostly there. That's as far as I am. I've been noodling a bit with some ideas for development, but again, I share that with you just simply to tell you a way I overcame a writer's block moment. Writer's block might be too strong a word of what I was experiencing at the time. I've had that much worse, but a way to move the piece forward. So hopefully this thumbnail will grow out to at least a tolerable length in the next few days. But most likely, there's just not guitar happening this week. It's kind of a bummer. I'll tell you what is happening this week, though, and I'm really excited about this. I will be getting a puppy on Friday. Today is Tuesday. It's probably going to be after Friday by the time this comes out. But as I'm sitting here speaking, it's Tuesday. And there's a puppy coming home in a few days. And I'm excited. It's a corgi. That's right. I am getting a freaking corgi. Hey, real quick. Next month, I'm going to be featuring some music from Christian Heim. And I was talking to him and realized that he has sent me music before that I didn't air on the show, and that wasn't intentional. Probably back when he sent those, I was still figuring out how I was going to structure the show. But I know one thing I used to do. I was always afraid that I was going to run out of music to play. And so, I would say, all right, if someone sent me, several pieces, I'd say I'll play this one now, and then I'll play, others later. And it certainly was not intentional to not play the rest. So in my mind I had, and I've decided I'm going to, it's time to make a document and, create this database so I can reference what every single episode, what music was played, who it was by. That way I know, stuff that I have or have not repeated and whatnot. But anyway, I did the same thing to someone else too. If you've sent me music that I haven't aired on the show, please let me know. I promise you, if I decided it wasn't meant for the show, I'd tell you. So if I didn't say, I don't want this on the show, I intend to have it on the show, but it's entirely possible there's some stuff that's been sent to me that was stowed away for later and forgotten about. With the exception of the music of Etienne de Laveau, he sent me like his entire library, and so I'm pulling from that on occasion. But of course, there's tons that I still have not aired on this show from him. So we'll definitely hear more from him in the future. But if you've sent me something, let me know, please. And I haven't played it. With that, I think it's a good time to go ahead and go on to the music. I don't have a whole lot of show for you today as far as like things that I am anxious to talk about. Life has been pretty quiet, just waiting for this puppy to come home, dealing with broken nails, and waiting for the sun to shine. So I sometimes like to talk about movies or... Hey, I'll tell you this. There's some books I've really been digging on the horror side of things. I don't know if they're like straight up horror. I wouldn't call them horror. Maybe a little more thriller / horror / adventure of the ones I've read. But there's a movie from the 90s called The Relic. Loved it. It's a monster movie. Just a pretty straight up monster movie. Well done. Loved the movie. And found out it was, from a book. And I read the book last year. And the book was really good. I mean, the book was fantastic. It's by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. And it's called Relic. Loved it. And it's a case where, had I read this book first, I think I'd have hated that movie. Because they're pretty different. But the movie's great. The movie, the movie's great. So, it's one where, you could watch the movie first, and I don't think it's going to shape the way you view the book too much, because the book's just really different. So, but then the books go on, and so I've been going through them, and I've been really enjoying it. I'm going to have to confess that I tend to read stuff like that most of the time these days. I used to make it a point to read like more nonfiction and more like classic literature. I used to try to get that in the mix, like a healthy amount, just to... But here's what happens. Every time I read a nonfiction book, I inevitably start some new project. Truth be told, that's how this began. And now I have to do this every month. Well, I mean, I choose to have to do this every month, but like, I don't need any more ideas. So I indulge in a lot of just fictional literature. Not a lot, but I do like to read. My friend Jeremy once described like Stephen King as comfort food. It's not really anything particularly profound with his writing, but it's certainly entertaining. And it's kind of how I'd view these. I'd probably tell you I like them better than Stephen King, personally. I think they're paced very well. So, I'm digging those. If you're looking for some good thriller / horror, like if you're looking for something that like borderlines horror, but you're afraid of like true horror, this is something that's good in between. It doesn't satisfy like the horror craving, but it's just great for what it is. Speaking of horror, I rewatched a horror movie recently as well that I had not seen. I bet I hadn't seen this movie since near the time it came out, and that's I Know What You Did Last Summer. Late 90s horror. It was better than I remembered. I actually really enjoyed it this time. I don't know, it's not great, but it's good. It's kind of in that genre of Scream and the movies that came out around that time. There's some good ones. Scream, Urban Legend's pretty good, and I think I Know What You Did Last Summer's a pretty good movie. I never did see the sequels. I don't have a huge interest in it, but I might try the second one. What did they do next summer? So, next time you're having yourself a 90s themed retro night or something, want to put on an old scary movie. It's weird to say that's old, but technically I think it is. That's a good one. That'd be a good one. It's very 90s. All right. How about some music? Let me suggest you pause the podcast and acquire an iced tea for yourself or something similar. A nice, comfortable seat would be preferable. Somewhere you can relax, close your eyes, and just disappear into some classical guitar. Today I'll be featuring music from Freya Shaw. Freya has been featured on the show a few times, 2 or 3 times in the past. And one thing about Freya is she is visually impaired, which has kind of been the catalyst for a lot of her music. Freya writes, "Hello, Chris. I hope you're doing well. Thought I would share my current project with you. I am currently coding some audio games. In the first, the player can explore different soundscapes made up of found sounds, such as flowing river, water and birds, synthesizers, and acoustic instruments. In the second, the player can explore an audio diary and listen to the diary entries in the audiobook. The diary centers around a sound recordist who travels a fictional world collecting noises. Naturally, the classical guitar plays a large role in both games. There is so much more about the game for me to share with you, but I think I'll save it until the game is in its publishing processes. The game has no interactive visuals, so both sighted and visually impaired users can play. I thought I would send you some pieces from the games. I'm so proud of these projects. I wondered if you had ever tried playing an audio-only game. If not, I can suggest some if you're interested." Thank you, Freya. In answer to that, no, I have. I can't say I have played an audio-only game. This is the first I've ever heard of such a thing. So I do find it really interesting. I confess that interesting, but doubt I would be getting around to give it a try. And not that I don't think it's worth trying, it's just that gaming is just not really a thing I do. And, I certainly played video games when I was younger a lot. And now I do, like, with my son, like, we'll play some games sometimes. I tend to, like, want to play old, like, NES games with him. and he loves those, so that's usually, like, the limit to what I'll do. But yeah, at some point in my life I just, like, stopped playing video games, and I've never really gotten back into it. And maybe I'm going down the wrong track. Maybe this is nothing like that. I don't know. Please do suggest some, because at the very least, some listeners out there might be interested. I'd certainly be interested in this one you're working on because of its somewhat connection to this show. Okay, without further ado, here are 3 pieces by Freya Shaw, collaborating with guitarist Ben Chalker. I don't know if they necessarily have an order, so I'm going to put them in the order that seems logical to me. So this will be The Diary of a Sound Explorer theme, Leaving the Island, and Ending Music. Okay, and there it is. We've just heard 3 pieces by Freya Shaw. Thanks, Freya. You know, there's a lot of crappy stuff going on in the world right now, and I'm not gonna give you some hippie nonsense and tell you music is the answer or anything like that, but I do hope that this podcast at least gave your brain something else to think about for half an hour. It did me. So thanks for sending that music in, Freya. I hope you're all doing well. I really appreciate you listening. And hey, if you're a guitarist and you like new guitar pieces, and you like supporting podcasts that you like, a great way to fulfill all of those things in your life is to get on classicalguitarcomposers.com, click on the link titled Sheet Music, and there you can purchase some of my original classical guitar pieces, and it's a great way to support the show. And for those of you who've done so already, I just want to tell you thanks. I really appreciate it. And for those of you not interested, well, no worries. I hope you enjoy the show. I will be back next month. Last episode, I titled it something that may have caused some confusion, saying, "This will be the last time." I was trying to be... Okay. You know what? I'm going to tell you about this real quick. The podcasting host I use, redid their website, and it's much nicer, but I got a little confused on formatting my show. So I usually title the show by the episode number. So this should be the title of this episode should just be episode 39. And then I usually have a subtitle because it asks for I think it's Apple has a subtitle. And so what I've always tried to do is give I always try to do a title that I attempt to be clever in referencing something that I said on the show. I don't know. So but see, that came up as the main title of the show. So the title of the last episode was "This Could Be the Last Time." Well, I'm not talking about the podcast. It was in reference to talking about the composer that we no longer speak of on the show, and referencing the Rolling Stones. It's the Rolling Stones song, "This Could Be the Last Time." Because I think I mentioned the Rolling Stones in the last episode. So, it's just it's stupid. But that's what that was about, in case you were wondering. As of now, I plan to keep the show going indefinitely. So, I appreciate you all listening. I look forward to next month's episode. And until then, keep on plucking.